Let's go. Episode 7.
Yeah, episode 7. This is a classic title, really. Chemical Deliveries. The do's and don'ts.
Okay.
Now, this is literally just happened. Well, it happened very recently, and this is why we thought we'd have a chat about it. Because I phoned you up and I said, I've had a corker today, Andy. An absolute corker.
You did?
Out and about doing my usual training. PPO level 3. 10 o'clock in the morning. Second day of the course. Everybody's there. Next thing, bit of a noise outside. Everybody looks outside and there's a delivery truck, turns up, at the back of the hotel. Everybody's looking outside. Somebody says, oh, I think that might be our chemical delivery for the pool. Of course, at that particular point, Hardy's ears start picking up. Because I'm thinking, there's a few scenarios here, Andy. One, everybody associated with that pool is on this course. Now, we're having a chemical delivery, 10 o'clock in the morning. The sun's out. It was a couple of weeks ago when we had that bit of a heat wave and what have you.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how's this going to work? Anyway, nobody says anything. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just going to let this play out. And I'm thinking, at any given point now, we're going to have somebody from reception running in saying, we got a chemical delivery. Can somebody come down to the pool and sort it all out? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I'm thinking, I'm trying to concentrate on producing a quality course, Andy, like we normally do. And I'm thinking...
You were distracted.
I was distracted. I'm thinking, what is happening here? Anyway, the next thing, half an hour later, the truck reverses out and off he drives. And I'm thinking, where's this chemical? When's something going to happen? So at that particular point, I'm thinking, shall I stay put? Or at that point, I thought, no, I need to send somebody out. And I'm thinking, put your health and safety hat on, son. What we've got here is a situation whereby somebody's dropped off a dozen carboys on a pallet, sodium hypochlorite, in the bright sunshine, directly on these containers, decomposition taking place straight away as far as the product is concerned, potentially pressure increasing in these carboys. I could have 10 to 12 carboys containing 25 litres of sodium hypochlorite all over the car park if we don't actually get somebody to do something about it. So at that particular point, we send somebody out and we say, just check, will you, that everything's okay, the delivery has been left, etc., and we'll take it from there. At that point, certain person comes back and says, yes, they've left it in the car park area, directly by the access to the plant room, in full view of any public that are wandering around there. Easily
so fully accessible.
Fully accessible, mate. Totally accessible. So in terms of that, person comes back and I say, righto, we'll spare somebody else to go as well, and we'll have half an hour break on the course while you actually put this product away and let them carry on. But that scenario kind of rang bells with me straight away. So in terms of that, as you well know, I'm an ex-operator, you're a pool engineer. We know the situation with these things. And at that point, I'm thinking, my God, hopefully they've got a cost bio. Hopefully they've got some risk assessments in place.
Yep.
Hopefully we've got some details in terms of who is the competent person as far as taking the delivery of these chemicals is concerned. Does the risk assessment contain information that says it should be somebody from the pool area who has got that competency to take delivery of this chemical? All those kind of things start bouncing through my head. Now, at this particular point, I will emphasise that we're going to go into this topic in a lot greater detail. But in terms of the fact that we've had a live scenario happening, you know, it warranted discussion and it warranted this kind of little podcast. And that's why we're having the discussion now. It's just the serious consequences behind all this kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So at that particular point, I mean, to continue delivering the course as I wanted to do, I'm now thinking, we need to have a check of all this stuff and need to have a chat with people and make sure we're doing the right thing. So at that point, Andy, based on the fact that I'm only on the second day of the course, I do actually skip through the actual course content now. And all of a sudden on my PowerPoint, a section on cosh appears.
Yeah. I was going to say, during the course, how you got to the risk assessment stage of the course?
Yeah. Well, not at that particular point, mate, because I'm dealing with all the first day stuff in terms of water testing, pollution, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I thought, well, we need a bit more detailed discussion on that. And that obviously became the eye-opener. And I think, in all fairness, lovely people and what have you, but the message needed to be put across in terms of what should and shouldn't be doing. So, we're looking at all the basic principles in order of delivery, unloading, transportation, storage areas. I've mentioned
checking what's been delivered as well.
Checking what's been delivered
documentation.
As well. All the documentation as well in terms of that. Why isn't there a policy in place in terms of the delivery company phoning us up and saying, we will be delivering tomorrow at this particular time. Make sure you have somebody available. The site making sure that they did have somebody available to actually take the actual delivery as it came in. The fact that it had been left in a public area.
Yes.
In a car park, full access to anybody concerned. I mean, all these kind of things. I mean, it's a standard thing at the end of the day. There's no blame. There's nothing's been apportioned as far as blame is concerned. But, everything in their favour was against them in terms of how we were kind of reacting to this kind of delivery coming in. And as well as I do, it only takes some kids passing by. It only takes, somebody to start interfering, fiddling about with these products. So, we started to have a discussion about it anyway. And it's all relevant. It's all part of the course. At the end of the day, we're dealing with dangerous products here. We're quite lucky in terms of the fact that there was no acid being delivered at the same time as the chlorine, because obviously we got incompatible chemicals there at that particular time. It's all geared to having a good, solid risk assessment in place in terms of what the procedure is for taking the delivery, but in terms of that, the competency of the people from the site perspective who are going to take responsibility for that delivery as well. So, go on.
Yeah, I mean, it just surprises me that, that if a delivery driver, is that the normal routine for a delivery driver? If there's nobody available, is it acceptable to him just to leave it in a public area? I would have thought they would have demanded that somebody take it,
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of that, there was staff about. There weren't pool staff, but there were staff about, because obviously the environment that we were in a hotel environment. But there might be a case whereby these people are delivering to a site that's not occupied. It might be a smaller pool that's closed, and literally speaking, are they allowed to leave it outside? I mean, I've had other situations happen whereby we've opened the fire exit door in a pool, and believe it or not, there's a pallet with cowboys at the back of the fire door, whereby the operator wasn't expecting the delivery till the day after, and it was delivered the day before, and they were none the wiser that it had even been dropped off. So, everybody listening might think, oh, that's a bit, but it happens. It happens.
It still does.
It's still happening.
So many scenarios. There's so many scenarios to think about in a risk assessment for that chemical.
Yeah, and well, I mean, obviously you got the risk assessment itself, but I mean, obviously a cost assessment in terms of that is a specific risk assessment. But we're talking about risk assessments in general in terms of responsibility.
Responsibility and procedures.
Responsibility and procedures. Where is that documented? Do you know what I mean? Where can you find that information? Is the company that's dropping off the chemical aware about what those procedures are? Do they know that they should be actually trying to find a member of staff, to actually handle this delivery? Or is it just a case of, I've got another 20 drops to do during the day, and it's all that kind of thing. And are fully aware that delivery drivers, it might not be the last delivery of the day. It might only be the first one and they've got another 20 to do. But in all fairness to the delivery driver, are they aware of what that protocol is for them dropping off that chemical at that site?
So really, it's about being competent enough as well to do that risk assessment, isn't it? So it's having the knowledge of the chemicals, understanding what those chemicals are for, and that needs to be, the risk assessment needs to be done by somebody with some competence. Yeah.
And, obviously the information, the instructions, the training for the employees operating, all this kind of stuff as well, that needs to be in place. It was just all that kind of thing. What about the journey that product's going to go on? Do you have to physically handle a carboy off the tray? And now, they should have lifts on them. Do you know what I mean? In order to take the pallet down and all that. But is it a company that requests that you have to carry them off the truck and all that kind of stuff? And that's still happening as well. Well, I mean, look at the general consensus there is that if anything is 18 kilo or above, it requires a risk assessment. It's manual handling at the end of the day, And in terms of that, 25 kilo and above 25 kilo, you shouldn't be physically handling it anyway.
No, that's right.
It's getting all that information across and making people realise that, not only are you handling a hazardous material, but it's the protocol you go through in order to safely store it, correctly handle it, you know what I mean? Transport it, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know whether it's the case with you. I've been to loads of places doing facility audits, and they're dropping off the containers at the back door, and then the member of staff has got to carry it down 15, 20 steps down to the plant room because there's no access to the back of the plant room. There's got to be a risk. It shouldn't be done anyway, but if it is being done, there's got to be a risk assessment in place.
Yeah, there's got to be some thought about that, hasn't there?
Well, there's a task. There's a task taking place, and that task warrants a risk assessment.
Yeah. If the risk assessment is done right, and it's going to flag up a lot of issues, and that needs to go up the chain, doesn't it? And say that this method of delivery and acceptance isn't good. We need a different method, whether that's relocate the chemical storeroom or put some lifting equipment in or something, isn't it? Yeah.
So and then as I say, we'll go into this in a lot more detail further down the line. But I mean, there's plenty of advice. I mean, obviously, people can come to the POC. We can give them the advice that they need. But PewTag, in all fairness, have produced a technical note 68, and that deals with the handling, delivery, storage, and application of swimming pool chemicals. So, there's plenty of good information out there, and we'll probably go into these documents and this kind of advice and guidance in a lot more detail. But this is a live scenario. It happened, and it just kind of brought home the fact that everything in this life, unfortunately, and particularly in our industry, boils down to education and training.
Absolutely.
It just boils down to education and training. Now, obviously we know some of these chemicals, they'll react strongly with other chemicals. Potentially we've got the capability to produce a bomb, haven't we?
Yeah. I mean, you look at, if you're having a pallet of sodium hypochlorite delivered, you're talking about kilograms and kilograms of chlorine that could potentially be released. If it gets in the wrong, if it decomposes or it reacts with other chemicals, or there's a fire in the building, something like that.
Yeah,
there's a lot of potential there, isn't there?
The chemicals that we use in terms of contact with water as well. Our people, like your hypochlorites, your calcium hypochlorite, your isocyanurates, your bromine, all those kind of things. They need to be kept in a cool place below 30 degrees C. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Which most pool plant rooms are approaching 30 degrees C, aren't they? Sometimes more.
Yeah, and the key word is below.
Yes.
The key word is below 30 degrees C.
Well, yeah. And if you don't, your chlorine's not going to last very long, is it? You're going to lose particularly with sodium hypochlorite, you're going to lose a lot of that chlorine from your product if it's stored, much above 25 degrees, aren't you? It needs to be 20 degrees, really, a product like that. It needs to be quite cool.
And the fact that, these liquids, we're getting these liquids delivered, they should be stored in separate bonded areas. Do you know what I mean? And those bonded areas should be able to accommodate or take 110% of the volume that's actually being stored. How many times do you see drums just scattered around plant rooms when you go? How many
sat in a little shallow tray?
And a lot of the time, in all fairness to the operators, they haven't got sufficient size of plant room to actually store it. But segregation is key. Believe it or not, acid and alkalines don't get on very well together.
No.
They tend to have a bit of a party when they get together.
And
that party can be lethal. I mean, we've seen that happen in big facilities, haven't we? We've seen that happen at Olympic parks.
Yeah, classic one I saw quite a few years back, and I might have mentioned it before, is where, there was a leisure centre and it was close to a river. The plant room got flooded. It was exceptionally high water level. The plant room got flooded, and the plastic buns that had the day tanks in upturned. And they just tipped out all the acid and that hypo, and they were just bobbing around the plant room, these day tanks, and all the dosing pumps got submerged. There was a lot of damage, but it tipped out acid and hypochlorite, and the fire brigade had to deal with, gas, very, very strong chlorine smell. I don't think it was a huge gas escape, but it was pretty acrid. And it just goes to show you, when you're risk assessing a plant room, that the breadth of what you've got to consider. That if it is a zone that's going to get flooded or has been flooded regularly, then maybe little plastic trays or buns are not the answer. Maybe the old-fashioned concrete bund is the answer, that gives you a little bit more protection from flooding incidents, especially if you're in a basement plant room.
But, the basic principle of, having a securely locked storage area for your chemicals, do you know what I mean? Making sure that it's cool and it's dry and all that kind of thing. And, it is so difficult, but it's the same thing in life. If you don't get the basics right, then what chance have you got? Do you know what I mean? I mean, are you working with a company that's supplying you the chemical that is able to provide you with an MSDS, a material safety data sheet?
Yeah.
If you phone them up and they say, what's one of them? I wouldn't be buying the chemical from them. Do you know what I mean? They've got a legal obligation. If they're supplying you with the chemical, they've got a legal obligation to provide you with an MSDS in terms of, how you handle this chemical. Things that you should be looking at in terms of the first aid side of it, if you get spillages and all that kind of thing. Based on the fact that we've had a live kind of thing happen, or I have, it just warranted a little podcast just to make people aware about what they should be considering, really.
Yeah, that's it, being prepared for deliveries turning up, at different times, and like you say, they don't always turn up when they're supposed to, or maybe they've got delayed,
and everybody goes to the basic touch point of, we'll give them a pair of gloves, we'll give them some rubber wellies, we'll give them a gauntlet. We'll go into the details of what the standard should be. Do you know what I mean? And what standard of gloves they should be, and what standard we'll do that again, but you've got to get it into your head that the PPE is only issued as a last resort.
Yes, we've gone protection.
We've gone through the risk assessment. Do we have to use chlorine? More often than not, we do. Right? If we've got to use chlorine, what control measures can we put in place to make sure that the people are coming into contact with it safely? And the PPE is right at the bottom. It's not the first thing; it's the last thing. It's all that awareness, and making people fully aware. And I've done it in the past, and you probably have. You get a delivery of chemicals and you think, oh, Christ, I've got to get this into the plant room. Right, let's get it off the trip, get it in there. We got loads of other things to do. And for that split second, you forget how dangerous that product is.
Yeah.
You just totally forget it. You've got a job to do. You've got a task in front of you, and you want to get it over and done with as soon as possible. I've seen people carrying things like this by hand, ruining their uniforms.
Oh yeah,
getting containers that have got loose lids on them, all that kind of stuff, spilling on their uniform. Lovely blue polo tops going pink. all that kind of stuff. I've seen it. I've
Yeah,
done
yeah,
it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
the consequences now are I'm a lot older, hopefully a bit more wiser, and these things shouldn't be done. So it's a case of educating the people that are there now in the pool industry, handling
yeah,
these chemicals and making sure they're doing it in the right way, following the
yeah,
correct guidance and procedures, and having everything documented. Because if
yep,
something happens, the first thing that an investigating officer is going to do is check your documentation and see that your protocols are in place.
yeah. Another one is when you come to use a chemical as well, isn't it? That you're using the right feeders, and
Oh, yeah.
in the chlorine, in the chlorine shortage that we had a couple of years back, we saw people using different types of chlorine and putting it in the feeder that they already had there, and really it wasn't suitable for the feeder. And there are certain types of chlorine tablets out there that can be explosive if they're not handled with or used in the right type of feeder.
Yeah.
That's another issue, and it's taking shortcuts when there's a supply issue. You can't get your normal product. You should have a protocol in place for that as well, shouldn't you? I guess.
Well, we had people during COVID and things like that, not that long ago, that were actually trying to find chlorine through Amazon and all kinds of stuff. Do you know what I mean? When we had that lack of sodium hypo, they were just
Yeah,
finding any way possible that they could to actually get a supply of sodium hypochlorite. It's frightening.
yeah. It was a scramble, wasn't it, just to try and get any kind of chlorine chemical for your pool.
Yeah, but I think the key thing for me was to make people aware of how you're taking the order in. Do you know what I mean? How you're taking the
Yeah, yeah,
delivery in. Things
yeah,
that should be in place in terms of accepting it, making
yeah,
sure that there's staff available to take it,
yeah,
making
yeah,
sure that it's not left outside for a long period of time, particularly from a safety perspective, you don't want people messing with it, but you certainly don't want the sun on it. You don't want to be exposed to the sun at the temperatures that we've had in the last few weeks.
Well, a lot of those containers are black, aren't they? Because they're designed to block out sunlight, but unfortunately, black material does absorb a lot of heat.
Yeah, it does, mate. Yeah.
In that case, it probably better be a white one, but
Yeah, that's right.
that's not what.
And as I said, sorry to harp on about it, but if you're getting deliveries of in paper or plastic sacks, it's making sure that you're putting them into plastic bins and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Not leaving them in their natural cover or what have you. If we don't get the basics right, then you're going to have big problems. You're generally dealing with dangerous chemicals here. They've got to be looked after. They've got to be looked after. And you must follow the manufacturer's guidance in terms of how you're dealing with these chemicals.
And you've got to be aware of what your contractors and other people are doing. Are coming into the plant room. I can remember a scenario where I was working in a plant room. There were some other air conditioning contractors in there, and they'd had a chemical delivery of cal hypo drums. And it was lunchtime. These contractors went to the shop, came back, opened all their Coke and sandwiches, and used the HDH or the calcium hypochlorite barrels as a little table to have
Nice.
have their lunch snack on. And that yourself, if you get sugar or liquid sugar into that container, you've got a fire on your hands.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons that there was a leisure centre in the northwest of England in the 90s burnt down, or the plant room burnt down, because Coca-Cola was spilt into one of the hypochlorite containers. It's calcium hypochlorite, and it bubbled away and got hot for a couple of hours, and eventually it burst into flames. So it's pretty serious stuff. Anything organic or anything sugar based has got to be kept well away from those chemicals.
Yeah.
So it's keeping control and keeping an eye on your contractors or people working in your premises as well, isn't it?
Well, and making them aware about what your emergency protocol is if anything happens in that plant room as well. Do you know what I mean? It's you have an obligation to notify these contractors about your fire policy or your emergency evacuation procedures. Do you know what I mean? That is your duty to actually tell.
Yes.
As soon as a contractor comes onto your site, they are your responsibility. It's not the contractor's company's responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's your facility. You take responsibility for it. And, the chlorine gas situation, the mixing of the acids and the alkalines and all that, it's making sure that your respirators are fitted with a combined filter, a B2P, a B2P3, or it's got to be specific. It's got to do what it needs to
task.
do. And fundamentally, this is another issue. How many people have their PPE actually stored in the plant room itself? I mean, you could open the door and you could be dead before you get to the PPE. A lot of this PPE should be stored outside the plant room. I say to people on my course, every course I do, the be all and end all. The one thing I'd hate to get burnt or anything like that. But the one thing I don't want to do is lose my eyesight. What's the issue with having pairs of safety goggles outside your plant room before you go in? If your chlorine line has burst, if your acid line has burst, and all these chemicals are spraying about in your plant room, the last thing you want is for that chemical to go in your eyes. So before you go into a plant room, you should be wearing a pair of safety goggles at least before you go in. That's a personal thing, but
I get it. That ties in quite well with sort of chlorine gas monitoring as well, doesn't it? Because I've seen a lot of plant rooms where they've spent the money on a chlorine gas alarm system, and the main controllers inside the plant room, and they haven't put a warning beacon outside, or because it was too far away, or the concrete wall was too thick, or whatever,
or too expensive, or too expensive,
So it's no good. You need to know before you go in the room what's going on in the room, don't you? So
what you're going to meet, when you open that door,
all
kinds of things could have happened overnight. It's not just time in terms of between your normal testing regime, minimum of 3 times a day and all that kind of thing. It's the fact that what's happened overnight between 11 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning, lots of things could have happened in that plant room. Most plant rooms are working 24/7. So if they're working 24/7, things can go wrong 24/7.
Yeah. And there is lots of things with the dosing system can go wrong during the night, can't they? It's like you can get punctured lines, chemical lines, or leaking injectors and things like that. That could be spitting out chlorine all night long. And you come in the morning, you've got to be aware. And really, a chlorine gas detection system is the number one way to be advised, if there's been an incident in that plant room.
Yeah.
So, especially if it's, limited ventilation, especially if it's in a basement, things like that, where the chlorine gas is going to lie heavy. If it does produce chlorine gas, it's going to sit in there all night long. It's not going to dissipate very well.
We're trying to be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah. Good point. Thanks for bringing it up. I think it's some important points covered, and like you say, we'll revisit specific areas of this in the future.
Yeah, well, Andy, I thought it'd take 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, and we've probably gone over half an hour already. But that's just the nature of me and you talking. But as I said, sorry to repeat myself. Hope people find it interesting. If they've got any queries, they know where we are. They know we're here to help. We're not here to criticise. But literally, it's generally all about protecting pool operators from these terrible hazards that are out there as far as our industry is concerned.
Yeah. And the reputation of the business at the end of the day, and the facility.
Yeah. Nobody wants an incident like that on their premises. And as an operator, you don't want it on your CV either.
No, you don't. I think we've filled our slot for now, but we'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, and
nice to see you,
lovely to catch up, mate. And everybody, be safe out there, people. Be safe.
Yeah, take care.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
For more information on membership benefits available through the Pool Operators Club, visit our website at pooloperatorsclub.com.